So I thought this is a cracking question. So if you had a site, if you were the developer, you had a site to go right now, what would be the signs you'd be looking for to know it's time to launch? And we'll go with you first on this one, Marty.
Depends on what your site's offering, you know, whether or not it's appealing to those empty nesters, downsizers, or if it's more investment style, whether or not there's, you know, any incentives that are on the horizon, or if you start seeing, you know, open for inspections allowed again for people that are downsizing, and you start seeing, you know, a bank of, you know, auctions booked in for, you know, 2-3 months time, and then once they've sold, those buyers will be looking and so forth. So I think you need to look at the traditional resi market to see how that will then affect and cross over into the development space.
Yeah,
that's what I'll be doing. And I can only give you an answer to how I feel and what I think I would be doing. And for the developments that we're working on, that's what I'm going to be looking out for. You know, what's happening in Hawthorn, what's happening in South Yarra and Toorak in this sort of 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, $10 million residential bracket, because they are selling for a reason, and hopefully that reason is to buy the stock that I'm representing, or that Michael's representing in that price bracket. So, you know, watching what's happening from, you know, a grassroots level in the traditional resi space, I think is important. And once you see that kicking a bit, and like you said earlier at the very beginning, where there's going to be like a little peak straight after this, both financially and emotionally. I mean, you've got people that are fucking sick of being inside. That when they get out, they're going to go on a little bit of a spree, and then they'll pull themselves back pretty quickly as well. So I think you need to look at just the numbers, because the numbers never lie, of what's happening in the traditional space, and then look at what incentives are coming out, what the government, you know, is doing for different sectors, business owners in particular, like what Michael's saying. You know, some people have been affected pretty badly, and they were running great businesses. How they're all going to change and what they're going to be trading in and out of.
Yeah, makes sense. What do you reckon, Michael?
Yeah, so I guess the signs. Yeah, it's interesting. I guess it depends on your outlook. There's sort of two schools out there. There's if your outlook is you're thinking that there's going to be a bounce back, and sometimes you're reading things that it's like a V-shaped recovery. So if you're in that frame of mind, well then yes, you'd probably be waiting. But there's another category there that also thinks that it might get worse before it gets better. They think there might be.
Or is it vague? That's the question, right?
So, well, yeah. So if you think there's 2 or 3 legs to go, then that. So depending on which camp you're in, will depend on the action that you actually ultimately take, and then it depends. Again, you've got established versus off the plan. If you're established, well, I guess there's a degree of relativity to things, right? So if the market's slightly suppressed when you're selling, you're probably buying in the same market. So there, again, what you've dropped, the other one may have dropped, and vice versa. If you wait till it increases, probably what you're going to buy is going to increase. Yeah. In terms of plan, though, that's a little bit different, because not all of our developers and not everyone is blessed with time. So personally, I'm a little bit against the trend of most, in being that I'm actually seeing the levels of inquiry improving. I don't think it's as bad as what we thought it was going to be initially. We've seen probably about a 30 to 40% drop off in inquiry, but that still leaves about 60+% of inquiries of buyers that are very active out in the marketplace. Yeah. So to that end, from my perspective, I think it's quite an opportunistic time to be selling. I think if I was a developer and I had a project, I'd look at it and I'd say, well, I've got limited competition out there in the marketplace. The buyers in the market want to buy now. As time gets better, there will be a rush of launches and developments going to the marketplace, which I don't think is which is fine for me as a real estate agent. But if I was a developer, that's not ideal selling conditions for me. I want to be out there when I've got the least amount of competition that's possible. So personally, if it was me, I would not be uncomfortable launching now, because there are buyers that are out there. It gives you a chance to check the temperature of the market, for want of a better phrase, that goes out there. I don't see really any downside, provided, again, you've got your budget right. You're not overspending and spending all your marketing dollars. You have the right format to be able to do it in. You've got agents now acting on buyers that are very qualified. So I actually don't think it's that bad a time to be launching in this current environment. I would be waiting.
So Michael, if it was your development and was on the line,
yep,
would you be launching your own development in, say, 4 weeks' time? If you had the luxury of being able to launch it, call it in September, October?
I guess it depends. What's a launch? Because, I mean, the reality is that a lot of stuff happens pre-sales. A lot of it happens pre-launch. And I know this is directed for the other Michael, but from my perspective, I think when you've got a development, there's kind of degrees of product market fit with the development kind of built. You got a bit of background there, Marty.
I've had to turn the car on and off.
Oh, that's all right, mate. It's good to see you in the car. Normally you're flying the chopper, but you got the car today.
No, I need to sell a few more developments, don't I?
Look, I think with every development...
Actually, so yes, no, you're right. Guys, launch.
So there's a degree of product market fit. There are people where the development's almost perfectly built for those people. In my view, there's no harm of going out and connecting those people, not doing an official launch, taking sales and doing an off-market style campaign, and then launching. That's what I personally would be doing. I think, I'm not sure.
That's what I'd be doing. I'd be doing something fairly soft, quite tailored, and ramping it as we start hopefully seeing a little bit more sort of positivity.
What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, well, that's as I said, provided you got your marketing budget right. I mean, the question was, if it was my development, would I be launching now or waiting? Well, I can tell you, I wouldn't be waiting for another 5 developments around the corner for me to be launching, that's for sure. I'd want to be going out there. There's 50, 60% of the inquiry is still there. I want to be targeting that market. I want to be targeting the people that are actively buying, so that when everyone does come onto the marketplace, I've got some sales already in the back pocket and I'm ready to go and I'm running. I don't want to be out there launching when everybody else is, because the reality is the best time to sell is really when you're in isolation, not when you're in competition. So that's why sometimes you see better results in winter than you do spring, because no point auctioning a house when you've got 1,000 auctions on that weekend. That's just insane. I'd rather be the only one when there's no one else in the suburb, personally.
Well, Michael, to that theory, my wife and I, we have sold 3 properties in the middle of winter for that exact reason, because there was no competition. So the theory does work.
Well, you know what I mean? The theory does work, and
yeah.
it just may be a possibility that we have a slight clue as to know what we're talking about.